This program is brought to you by the Southern Institute of Technology.
Beautiful, tranquil and relaxing are just a few of the many words that could be used to describe Glenfalloch. Under the watchful eye of head gardener Alan Fennell, these grounds have risen to a national and international status. It's not just the gardens that are drawing the crowds, but also the beautiful restaurant owned and operated by Steve Richardson.
Glenfalloch is Gaelic for hidden glen, and that's quite possibly why the first owner bought the place, because it's quite sheltered, especially from the wind. And we have quite a microclimate here. We grow a lot of different plants that they can't grow in other places than Dunedin. The first owner was George Gray Russell. He came here in 1871.
He set about to build the homestead, and the reason he built the homestead was for a gentleman's residence. After a period of years, can't remember how many, but his wife wanted to immigrate back to England because she really wasn't enjoying the New Zealand way of life, I guess.
The next owner came in 1917, and he's the one that bought most of the rhododendrons. The first owner he planted most of the big trees. The next owner came out trying to recreate an English garden, so he planted a lot of rhododendrons and some of the other smaller trees, the maples and things. So it's been an ongoing thing. Look, like it's called the bones of the garden. It's been here for a long time, and they set that up. They set the whole place up really to work well in the future.
Well, I've been here for, I think, just over 17 years now. So basically started working for the trust when I first come here. After that, I formed a business and took over the catering operation. It's a busy wee place, and it has got busier and busier. I
came to the garden just over 7 years ago now. The garden had been possibly let go a wee bit. The trust hadn't spent much money on it. They decided to put some effort into the garden, and that's where I came on. And the first job was really getting the problem weeds out, getting everything looking good, and then it's starting to develop more areas, pushing the main garden, which we call the lower garden, pushing it out further and actually starting to expand things. And while at the same time also developing the gardens that are there, starting to underplant with some things. So just keeping that woodland theme going and starting to stretch it out a wee bit. I think that the really interesting thing about running a business within the Glenfalloch is really a good thing for me, because I've got the advantage of having so many different angles to be able to market my business. My duties really are sorting out the garden, developing the new parts if we need any new parts, and maintaining it really. The big thing here is maintenance, because it's such an old garden. Do I need to move anything? Do I need to change anything? Yeah, there probably is a lot of changes that we could do to make it different, but really at the end of the day it's set up really quite nicely, and we've been able to run our business in conjunction with the garden absolutely fantastically, because where we're standing right now is the bridal lawn, and what would you change about this? We could make it a little bit bigger to get more people into, but really we've got another lawn that we could do that with, so really we don't have any problems with having to change anything. We've also had new projects coming on, but this one where I'm standing at the moment is in the Rotary Garden. This is a project we did in conjunction with one of the local Rotary clubs for their centenary, and we've tried to plant it sympathetically what's here already, but also change things slightly, a few different plants into the garden. We keep English sort of type trees, but we also didn't want it in this garden here, didn't want to affect the view, so we always have view of the harbour from this area. When we do the new gardens, we try to keep that woodland feel about it, which is keeping in harmony with the rest of the garden. But in doing that, we also try to get a few newer plants in as well. If you always put the old plants in, the whole garden look the same, so we try. Plants are always evolving and getting new varieties of things, so we try to include those as well. It makes it still a woodland garden, but just a little bit different. It may be a slightly more modern woodland garden. Glenfalloch is often called a four seasons garden. That's because we have something happening at all times in the garden. Obviously it's woodland garden is mainly a spring garden, and the other main season would be the autumn, where the colours are just magnificent and the trees losing their leaves. But we also have things in summer happening as well. We have the roses flowering. Right here we've got heritage roses, which is just going to come up and flower soon. Lower gardens we have the hybrid tea roses. We have fuchsias things flowering that flower not only in summer, but they flower right through winter as well. hydrangeas, which we have flowering here in winter as well. So it's a lot of things flowering at different times of the year. There's always some interest in the garden. While we have got a woodland garden in the lower part of the gardens, what we call the upper part of the gardens is a bit different. It's 30 acres in total Glenfalloch property, and the lower gardens is probably 7 to 8 acres. So the top part is a gully of bush, and in that bush we have a tree we call a matai, and it's reputedly about 400 years old. It's a grand old tree. For some reason it was missed when they're logging in the old days. They went right across the peninsula and logged a lot of it. This tree here is the oldest remnant on the peninsula, and it's a great tree that we always take people up on the garden tours just to have a look at it.
We have probably the broadest spectrum of market that you could ask for, because I mean we've got from people looking through the gardens that are generally an older generation coming through the garden. You'll also have the younger people that are getting married. So I mean basically, so you go from anything from, you know, early 20s right through to late 70s, 80s coming through the garden. I mean, our claim to fame is that we've done 4 weddings and a funeral in one day. So, I mean, that's really our claim to fame. So, yes, the answer is we do a lot of multiple functions in one day. The most we've ever done in one day was 10 functions out of both restaurants. And really, I mean, you've got to be totally organised to get everything organised so you've got people coming in and out at the right time. Some of those turnovers were, you know, 5 or 10 minutes. So there was a bit of scurrying to get the next party coming through and the last party out of the building. I've just employed a new set of victims for this season, I guess you want to call them. They're all hospo workers, and they've been in hospo before. The really interesting thing is that they started, their first day was Sunday, and there was 3 of them that started on Sunday, and they said it was, all of them had turned around and said, this was the best first day that I've had in hospo in my life. You come into this workplace as such as it is for me, even if you are feeling tired or, you know, sort of have done a lot of work for the week, you come out here and you can actually relax to the point where you don't even realise that you're doing it, but because you're working within a natural big woodland garden, it really just does take that pressure off sometimes, and it's lovely to be able to look out the door and not see a whole lot of buildings in front of you and actually see gardens. Alan was really the person that's really got the garden. It's been a garden of regional significance for quite some time, but really Alan's done a lot of work to get it to a garden of national significance. You've got to really work hard at getting it to that stage.
At the moment we're graded on New Zealand Gardens Trust a garden of national significance, which is a grading that they give to the gardens around New Zealand, well, people that are part of the trust. And there's a tier. We're second tier at the moment. The top tier, there's only 4 gardens in New Zealand in the top tier. The garden being national significance, we had to put a lot of work into that. The main thing really that I found was the maintenance of the garden, and also the maintenance of the paths, and the basic garden parts really, the mulching of the gardens, things that really should be done in most gardens. We put a lot of time and effort into that and get things, the pruning up to date, the dead wooding trees and plants. So it's a big thing, but we put a lot of work and time, spent a lot of work and time in doing that.
That work has been done from Alan and his crew, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job. And I think the outlook for Glenfalloch is going to be absolutely fantastic. More people are going to be coming out, and we've just stepped up our marketing and trying to get more people to come into the garden.
Well, I think by getting that national standard, it makes us gardeners look like, you know, as if we're doing our jobs, which is good. And I think it increases the people that come through that actually know about gardens. And one of the main reasons for setting the trust up was to get these gardens together, to promote themselves overseas to the gardening groups, to get them here, the international gardeners. And I think it's starting to work quite well. We're getting a few international groups out, and they love the gardens, they really do. Before, they possibly didn't know that they were here. This is an old garden that a lot of people like to see.
The big thing that I would love to see happen with Glenfalloch is I would like to see a return of all the families coming out. Years and years ago there used to be lots and lots of families, you know, in and around all over the place, but that's kind of stopped with the invention of the internet. But I do see it being a spot to come.
The garden here I find is quite a passion for me. I love coming to work. There's a lot of satisfaction coming here, and especially taking the gardening groups around. You get a busload of people from from say England or America that they're avid gardeners, and they come around, they ask questions after questions, and it's great just being able to showcase what, not really my garden, but it's a garden that I put a lot of input in. So yeah, just quite rewarding when you get those people asking questions, and you know, they're really excited about it as well.
Spring for me is the best time in this garden, and there's just sort of a vibrant look about it, and it's all the natural blossom and everything, all that is just absolutely fantastic. So you know, it is a really, really sort of kind of cool place to work.
This program has been brought to you by the Southern Institute of Technology.